Okay, welcome back to the Boiling Point, episode 9, Justice for All. And the special guest with me at this time is Pastor Gavin Whitcomb Sr. He's definitely a much anticipated guest. A lot of people have been waiting for me to have him on the podcast since I started. He's finally with us, and he's going to talk about the Constitution and its relationship to God, and that's what we're going to talk about. So, Gavin, why don't you go ahead and take us on in?
Yeah, well, thank you, Jonathan. And let me just say this: I'm really glad to be here. And I've known Jonathan since he was just a little kid, so
That's
that
true.
shows you how old I am. But yeah, I'm going to talk about our nation, our country, and its foundation, and how it related to God, like how our founding fathers tied in with that idea, and how it guarantees justice for all, as long as we stick by the Constitution
And the Bill of
and
Rights.
right in the Bill of Rights.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. So, well, let me just say that I'm a pastor of a Christian church, and I've been for over 30 years now. So, I'm coming at you from a Christian perspective, a Christian worldview, which the same worldview that Jonathan shares,
Yep, that's
basically.
true.
Now, see, the term worldview, it's just what it says. The way you view the world. Everyone has a worldview.
That's
Now,
true.
some people, they have an atheistic worldview. They don't believe in God and His existence. I do. Now, when it comes to a Christian worldview and an atheist worldview, both of them are matters of faith. Like, okay, was anybody around when the universe came into existence and the earth came into existence? No.
No.
So we as Christians who would look at it from a biblical point of view and believe in God, we weren't there when it happened. So we take it by faith. Atheists weren't there when it happened. So by faith, they believe there is no God. Now, can you prove the non-existence of God scientifically? No. Now, we can't prove it scientifically, but if you look at the evidence, what's the evidence? Well, the creation. Like, if you were driving down the road and you saw a house, you wouldn't think that just popped up on itself. You would think, well, he built it. The minor older. Well, it's architect obvious vaping. Well, more is this having thing. To me, nose on your really on why this.
Yeah.
God, not setting aside that it's and make you look at can only come board letters out often coherent sentences. But if you got up table and there it said, please take the trash out this morning, you would know that your mom, spelled that out and deep the product and intelligence. So I brains are founded the believers. It was, hey, I believe God created this how He did it. So it's only in scientists when it comes to our nation, world, no God. Well, then, how it's right or wrong to kill a baby and cut it? What's wrong? Nasty. There's no right and wrong. Yeah. No, okay. What's a belief that you do? We all have philosophy and to cut. I will not buy a riding mower because I'm better than I got to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that belief, the disorder, because nobody parks there. But far, which gives everybody else, okay, the nation that they okay, independent. I don't know how I said that, but time to time, when decide that birds, today, the true that, and they say, "Oh, I don't believe you can enter."
Yeah.
Well, or the truth, and I can't. So in our faith, giving out to everybody, self-ethical world,
Yeah.
the people in the founding of to the United figure out states, tag colonies, you know, one over there in farm said it was, and so greatness. He said it was good. Excuse me, be good. Uh, there's another never, and we're the guy time right.
Yeah.
Everybody was biblical sense in a lot. So back self-evident. And mentioned, alluded, you know, and then intentions are so the declaration
Of independence, and that's just to talk about.
they said we hold evident and people. Yeah, and
Yep.
I catch at it, but it's different. Or you know, protection
Equal out.
exactly. Make let's get the work
Don't worry about that.
so the Old Testament. You man. You got it, and God. So, and access house gives us notice.
Them away.
They're right. They're doing what they're
No say in it.
alien it's these are right. So this of the government.
Yes, it is.
They are no, this isn't, but it's like putting it together. Read it was violent against. If you're a big have Frank said, a spare without noticing. It set God for
Play the other. You're saying. And reference that, I think that the people or believe than Christian operate the I what about from
Jonathan that you're in your decision. So we'll know that our founding fathers they weren't trying to keep God out of the public spectrum. What they wanted was they didn't want a state church. Like in England you had the Church of England.
yeah
In Scotland the official state church was the Presbyterian Church. In Germany it was the Lutheran Church, where like you had to be a part of that church, you had to pay taxes to it, and so our founding fathers wanted God and Christian beliefs, but they didn't want any one Christian denomination
yes
running or controlling the country.
because at the time there were many different Christian denominations, many different sects of Christianity
Yeah.
that were run in different countries.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, and that's where it comes from, is the fact that they didn't want one church or one thing to be in charge of the government. The
Yeah.
government is separate from the church, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that you can't take God out of government either, as
Right.
said in their founding documents that
Yeah.
they reference God many times so far that we've already talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, so if they didn't want God in government, why would they mention or allude to God 4 times in the Declaration of Independence?
Yeah.
And why does Congress, even to this day, they open every session in prayer? Why? Because they did it at the beginning. Why? Because they didn't want God and referring to God completely excluded from public life. They didn't want a state church.
Yes, and if they didn't want God in government, why wouldn't they have just said in plain words? I find it hard to believe that the founding fathers would use words like unalienable, but wouldn't be able to come up with a word like not allowed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. So, yeah, now see, my church is Baptistic in its views, and so like Baptists have always held to the belief that there should be a separation between church and state. Like there shouldn't be a state church that
Yes.
people have to belong to, and the state church dictating or the church dictating to the state.
And churches also don't get taxes, or
Right.
they don't get tax money. Now that's true that
Yeah.
some faiths don't get taxed either. They don't get taxed either, but they also don't get tax money. That's also where the
Right.
separation of church and state comes in.
Yeah.
They're not getting tax money. Whereas in England at the time, the church was the government, so they obviously got the money from taxes. But
Yeah.
our churches get no money from taxes. They may not pay taxes, but they also don't get money from taxes.
Right. And another thing is that, see, the churches help benefit society in a way that would offset the need for the government to spend more money. So, take, for example, there are people that their lives are really messed up by sin and would be a real detriment to society. But then they hear the gospel, and so they want to be made right with God. So they repent of their sins and ask the Lord to save them, and they trust in His shed blood on the cross and receive forgiveness, and God changes and transforms their life. So now they no longer want to be a criminal,
Yeah.
or they
Yep.
no longer want to be somebody that causes social harm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our founding fathers, they said that, our Constitution is for a moral and a religious people and a virtuous people, and it'll be wholly inadequate for any other. So, like being morally virtuous and good, from a biblical worldview, that goes hand in hand with freedom.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
That certainly does.
Yeah.
Because we are free with the freedom that we have to worship anything or not worship if we choose not to also.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that also adds to this country's greatness is freedom to not be persecuted because of your belief system. Even if we do
Right.
see, if we are seeing a little bit of that in today's world, we're on a dangerous slope. Hopefully, we can
Yeah.
pull back from that and turn it around.
Oh, I'll say, yeah. Even atheists should be free to be atheists if
Exactly.
they want to, and that the idea of tolerance, letting you. Biblical Christianity says you can't force somebody to believe in Jesus.
Yep.
You can't force somebody to follow God. You can encourage them and share the truth with them, but you can't force it. So God has to do that. So the idea of making somebody belong to a certain religion, and if you don't, they get persecuted, that is not a biblical, biblical point of view.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
There's a historian, David Barton. He has an organization called Wall Builders, and I don't know if you've ever heard of him or not, but
No, I definitely haven't heard of him.
he's a Christian, and he specializes in early American history. And he goes back and actually reads the documents that they wrote, from that time period.
Yeah.
And he explains where the phrase separation of church and state comes from. So, Baptists have that in their doctrinal confessions of faith. Our church has it as well. But the phrase separation of church and state is not in the Constitution. It's not anywhere.
Yeah.
So where did that come from?
Yeah, it's just referred to as that Jefferson's amendment there. That's very
Right.
poor. It's a very poor paraphrase.
Yeah. For those of you who may not be familiar with what Jonathan's talking about, there was a rumor that one of the states, I'm thinking maybe it was Connecticut, was going to make a certain denomination the official denomination of that state, something of that nature. So the Danbury Baptist Association was concerned about it. So they wrote a letter to Thomas Jefferson saying, hey, this shouldn't happen. And he said, Congress has erected a wall of separation between church and state. And his point was that because of that wall, the state has to keep out of the church, and you can't interfere with the church. So that's where that phrase came from. But it's been misused to say, hey, you can't mention God in a public place or in a government institution or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
So they wanted us free to be able to be people of faith and express that faith. And what they had in mind was Christianity, because that's what they all, at least most of them adhered to.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
I'm going to read that quote, actually, the one that you just talked about.
Yeah, please.
He said, I'm going to read the full quote here, so everybody bear with me. Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions. I contemplate with sovereign reverence the act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state, adhering to this expression of the supreme will of the nation in behalf of the rights of conscience. I shall see with sincere satisfaction the progress of those sentiments which tend to restore to man all his natural rights, convinced he has no natural right in opposition to his social duties. So that was the full quote of what you were talking about, where the phrase separation of church and state comes from.
Yeah. The ironic thing is that people who have quoted that, they want to prohibit the free exercise of religion.
Yeah.
And then they want to establish the religion of atheism and secularism.
Yeah.
Now before my time, like I was born in 1961. Okay, so to some people that sounds like a long time ago. But and I think it was in like 1963 that through the Supreme Court, prayer and Bible reading in school were outlawed, and based on separation of church and state. Now, so they prohibited the free exercise of religion, and they established secularism as the official religion. And that's not what our founding fathers intended.
Yeah. No, that's not what they wanted. And that's something that I can't believe that they, prohibit prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least group prayer, I guess, is the way most of it's phrased, I believe, because no one can know if you're actually sitting in your desk chair praying to God,
right? Except
you and God.
Yeah.
So, which I believe was what Thomas Jefferson was just talking about in that quote that I just read.
Yeah.
That faith is between you and your God or the Creator, and doesn't involve anybody else. Certainly not the state.
Right. Yeah.
Certainly not your neighbor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
now,
back to the, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, the Declaration of Independence, then. Hey, have you ever heard Joe Biden, where he was speaking and he started to say the Declaration of Independence, and
oh, yes,
and he
we hold
forgot
these truths to be self-evident.
Yeah.
All men are by the Creator. You know the thing.
Yeah. And did you ever hear that song on YouTube? You know the thing.
No.
I'll have to send you that link.
Yeah.
Someone made a song out of that.
Oh,
and
man.
It is funny.
I bet that is quite hysterical.
Yeah. So, if Joe Biden were to win the election, he wouldn't be running the government. He would be a puppet, in my view.
Yes.
And people behind the scenes would be pulling the strings.
Or Kamala Harris is what my opinion. I think.
And other people like her.
Yeah, I think Kamala Harris and, like you said, other people would be controlling from behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Because Biden's I don't see him standing up to a book report right now.
No.
I mean, he did all right in the debates, though. But I think you got to wonder though if his misspeaking and his absent-minded attitude was maybe a kind of a ploy to lower expectations going into the debate, where he could speak coherent sentences for the first time in 8 months, and everybody, whoa.
Yeah.
He's not slipping. Look, he's speaking complete sentences. Lower that expectations to then blow him out of the water during the debate.
Yeah.
So, but if you actually listen to what he says, if you're actually hearing what he says, and then some of the stuff that he wants and Kamala Harris wants is pretty radical.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so.
Certainly not what some of the founding fathers wanted.
Yeah.
Certainly. Let's talk about the Supreme Court then. I mean, because the rumor is that they'll stack the Supreme Court, with candidates that they choose in order to be able to sway opinion. And the Supreme Court's had the number of members that it's had for,
I think, 150 years.
For 150 years now. So I don't think adding more is the way to go. I think that's quite a radical.
Yeah, it's just plain wrong.
Yeah, statement to make, because the judicial branch is the branch that's, to prevent the government, both the executive and the legislative branch, from making laws that are unconstitutional. So if you start appointing new people and people that you want to have on the court and stacking it, then it no longer becomes that. It just becomes a tool for your agenda.
Yeah. And that's not the role that the founding fathers intended for the Supreme Court.
No.
And it's been a pattern that what the left cannot get passed through legislation because it's not constitutional. They have some leftist members of the Supreme Court that get it through. So what they can't accomplish through legislation, through our elected representatives, they get it through the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
That's just totally wrong.
Yeah.
So that's why, that's the real battle now, to get people in the Supreme Court that want to stick to the Constitution. So see, there are two different philosophies. Here's the word philosophy again.
Yep, there it is.
When it comes to Supreme Court justices, you have originalists like Amy Coney Barrett. Is that how you say her last name?
I think so.
Something like that.
I think so. Yes, that sounds right. That's how I've heard it pronounced so far.
And Clarence Thomas.
Yeah,
he's awesome, I think.
Yeah.
That their idea is, okay, when we have cases, we're going to stick to the Constitution according to the original way that it was intended as written by the founders.
Yep.
But there are other people like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late RGB.
Yeah.
And her view was the Constitution is a living, breathing document.
Yeah.
And those men back then, they couldn't foresee changes that would take place, and so it's just not suitable for today. So we just have to, we're judges, so we just have to decide what would be best for our nation.
Yeah.
Well, no. You let the legislature, those thorny social issues, let the elected people decide that.
Yes.
The legislatures.
Yes.
But that's what's happening with the Supreme Court. So that's why I love the way that President Trump is trying to appoint originalists.
Yes. How about that though? That he is there's this big, everybody's hysterical because he wants to appoint, another justice. This close to the election. It's been done many times. Through the past. Stephen Crowder, look him up. He goes through all the different times that a Supreme Court has been nominated and elected in our past. The problem was the Democrats at the end of Obama's term, he elected somebody to the Supreme Court, but the Republicans controlled the Senate and blocked it. This time, Senate, the Republicans have the Senate, and President Trump is a Republican. So they can get it through, and that's where the Democrats have a problem. And it's like you can't cry about the rules and then change them so that you can win. This is the way. This is the way it is. You know what I mean? That's why we have elected officials. Yeah, sure. It would have been nice if you had a Democratic Senate when Obama was president. Then you could have gotten your nominee through. But the people decided that even though there was a Democratic president, we were going to elect a Republican Senate.
Yeah.
That the people did that. Nobody else did that. The Republicans certainly didn't do that. The people did it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So that's and then you've elected, those people were elected for their beliefs, for what they stand for what the decisions that they make, for what they told the people they were going to do. That's why they were elected.
Exactly.
So you can't complain about it just because you think it's rigged. You know, I mean, the people are responsible for the Senate being Republican for the last 20 years or more. I think it's been, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number of how long it's been a Republican Senate, but it's been a Republican Senate for a very long time at this point, and there's a reason for that. The people have elected them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought out the distinction, because I hear Democrats saying, you wouldn't confirm Obama's nominee until after the election. Well, yeah.
They weren't.
Right, they had a Republican Senate.
Yeah,
right?
and they didn't, and the Republican Senate didn't confirm President Obama's nominee because he was President Obama's nominee. Mm-hmm. They didn't confirm him because he was not confirmable.
Right. Yeah, they wouldn't have had the votes.
Anyway. They didn't. They didn't want this person on the Supreme Court for whatever the reason was. You know, those reasons don't necessarily matter. If you didn't like those reasons, the people could have voted them out in the next election. That's why we have elections. That's why we have term limits.
Yeah. I wish we had a limit on how many terms people could serve.
Yes,
I think the Senate. That's.
I think you and
Senate
I can definitely agree with us.
6 years, I think.
They serve for 6 years.
And the House is 2 years, I think.
But there are no term limits. The House is. Is it every 6 years? 2.
I think they're every 2 years.
Yeah, every 2 years, but they're a third. It's a third, and then a third, and then a third.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So it is. I mean, every 6 years, the entire Congress is voted for, but they only do a third every 2 years.
Yeah. Speaking of the House, I just came from a meeting over in Harrisburg. There's a guy from my church who's a member of the Rotary Club. So he invited me to the meeting, and Scott Perry, the congressman for my district, was there.
Okay.
That's the 10th legislative district. So he was speaking. It was pretty cool. I got to talk with him and sat at the same table as
excellent.
He believes in God. I don't know specifically exactly where all of his beliefs are, but he said, "Hey, I asked God to help me. We're fighting a real battle there in Washington D.C." But he was here a year ago, and I went to the same place and met him and heard him speak. He said, I go to the White House, a lot because I'm a congressman.
Yeah.
And he said, in the White House, in the Oval Office, President Trump has this whiteboard, and he has written on there the promises he made during the campaign. And when he fulfills the promise, he checks it off on that board.
Yeah.
So there have been so many things that he has promised, and he's done them.
Yeah.
Like trying to nominate originalists to the Supreme Court, cutting taxes.
Yep.
Cutting back
deregulation.
Yep. Cutting back stupid regulations that put a strangling hold on our industries and businesses and so forth, and other things. So I'm really impressed. President Trump, sometimes he says things that it'd be better if he didn't say them, but it's more about what he's done and what he stands for.
Yeah, a lot of people don't look at what he's done, although, some people are, but a lot of people don't look at what he's done, and actually he's done what he said he's going to do. Yeah. There's not many people that are elected to office that can actually make that claim, certainly. Mm-hmm. So what do you think of the polls? I was looking at the polls today. It looks like, every poll everywhere seems to have Joe Biden in the lead. Do you think that is because the people who are Trump supporters are laying low? They're not participating or not out there speaking or whatever, and it's the other side just making more noise than there is? Or do you think that he's actually leading in the polls?
Well, I've come to not trust the polls.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, a lot of the polls, we get it from the mainstream media. And, when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton, do you remember they were saying,
Yes.
Hillary Clinton's winning, and she has a 96% chance of winning.
Yes, that is true. They did have that one very wrong, too.
And I would suspect that they're probably talking more to Democrats. And maybe there are a lot of people that are afraid to say that they're for Trump because they're afraid of what reaction they might get.
There is backlash right now for being a Trump supporter. You can get hated on pretty good for that.
Mm-hmm.
The polls, just so everybody knows, CNN often runs polls where they poll people. They poll likely voters, not registered voters. That's a very important distinction to make because likely voters are not necessarily registered voters. Yeah. Registered voters have registered. They can go vote whenever the election is. Likely voters are not necessarily registered.
Yeah.
So that's an important distinction to make it when you're looking at a poll that's being shown online or on TV. Look at who they're polling because it's a very important thing to look at. Likely voters are not registered voters. Likely voters just mean that they're likely to vote. Registered voters are more likely to vote than likely voters.
Yeah.
So they like to fool you with that terminology.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's hard to say. I don't know. I just don't trust the polls.
Yeah. That's what I would think that's not nearly like it is. That's what, or at least that's what I'm hoping for. It's what I'm praying for is that
me too.
The Trump supporters are just staying back and staying low, just waiting for their voice to be heard on election day.
Yeah.
When they go and vote.
The sad thing is that our government has been too overactive when it comes to like the coronavirus thing, in my view.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
But yet underactive when it comes to the violence and violent protests and rioting. Yeah. So then they don't do anything. And of course, I know that's more local governments that are Democrat controlled.
Yes, let's talk about that because the coronavirus, President Trump, as per the Constitution, left the issues up to the states. He said, "Listen, the federal government's here to help you.
Yeah.
But the governors and the mayors, you guys should be in charge at a local and state level because what's good for North Dakota may not be good for Florida, which may not be good for Maine and may not be good for California." That's the reason we are set up this way. There are times when we are 50 states, and there are times when we are one nation. And during a pandemic like that, we are certainly not one nation. We are certainly 50 states.
Right.
And as per the Constitution, the way the designers wanted, President Trump let the state handle it. That's exactly. I couldn't believe that he did that. I thought, what are you doing? Because from a political standpoint, he could have just secured power. He could have just taken over the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pass or fail, it just all could have been on him. You know what I mean? And I think he probably would have done a better job than some of the governors have done, but he chose to do it constitutionally.
Yeah.
Let the states and governors handle their own things while saying, "Hey, listen, the federal government's here to help. That's why we're here. So you just got to let me know. Let's talk. Call me, let me know what you need, and we can help you. But we're not doing it for you." And a lot of people don't realize that in the cities and in the states where the rates are higher, they are more Democratic controlled. And also the cities that are having the not the protests but the riots are also more democratically controlled, whether it's Democratic mayors or Democratic governors of their state. And I think you're right. I think President Trump said, "Listen, it's exactly as he should. The states handle it. You guys can handle it, and we're here to support you." But with the protests and stuff, I think that's when you, or not the protests, but the riots, when we start having people burn down the cities. That is when you're supposed to step in my opinion. That is when you're supposed to step in. Now, I know he says that he was waiting for governors and mayors to call him, say, "Listen, we need help with this." Okay? They didn't do that. And I think there does come a time where it's not about waiting for them to ask for help and then blaming them when they didn't. I think the time for action where you got to go in there and shut this down, it's getting ridiculous. There's innocent people getting hurt. Innocent people are losing their businesses. Property damage in the millions and billions.
Yeah, right. And I wonder if they're trying to egg him on And then
That's what I think.
And then if he does react to it, then look what he's done.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
He's sending troops to kill American citizens.
I absolutely think that you're right, and I think
Yeah.
that's why he hasn't. But I have to
Yeah.
wonder, even though I do support President Trump, I have to wonder though that is there a time where you know what they're going to do, but is there a time where you just have to say, you know what, this just has to be done.
Yeah.
We have to send these troops in to restore order.
Yeah.
Especially when you got sections of communities that are becoming autonomous zones. What?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, could you imagine a section in Boston, a section of Boston back in 1800, saying no, we're our own autonomous zone here. What?
Yeah, they're taking a city they didn't build.
Yeah.
They didn't pay for.
Yeah. And claiming it for themselves. The founding fathers would have had soldiers marching in the streets.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. There comes a time. I do know that's what I think. You're right. I think they're planning to hit him with that. If he were to do that, I think that they would use that to hit him with it.
Yeah.
And
so maybe after the election.
And it probably would play well for a lot of people, for their side. They could spin it and make it play very well for their side. He's the dictator, President Trump. But I mean, and you're probably right. After the election, when he's a little more freed up and can do things, I'm hoping that's when we'll see more action again. Because I know he's a man of action. He's done a lot of different things so far. And I'd like to see more from him in regards to these riots. But that's just my opinion. I'd like to see a little more from him.
I would too. Yeah.
And he has denounced white supremacy. He's done it many times. So
what a lie that the mainstream media is trying to spin. Like, he did not. Well, when they said, "Would you be willing to denounce white supremacy?" he said, "Sure."
Yeah.
He said that. I think he said "sure" twice.
Yeah.
And he did before. It's
and
a
even
lie.
and in the debate he even said it. He said, "Will you denounce white supremacy?" He said, "Sure, yes, I will." What do you want me to call him? That's what. And then that's where the confusion got in. He wanted to know what the moderator wanted him to call
give
him.
Me a name. Which
but then
group?
Of course, Kamala Harris said, "Oh, he won't do it," and then the moderator's not necessarily on his side, so then there's confusion and people are like, "He didn't denounce it." He didn't. Actually, he did. Just listen and watch it, and you can see that he says, "Will you denounce it right now?" And he says, "Sure. What do you want me to call them?" That's pretty clear.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. What... there are some people that they act like white supremacy is a huge problem in our country. That's got to be a teeny tiny sliver of the total population. I mean, I think the whole thing of white supremacy is ridiculous, but...
Yeah. Well, there are white supremust groups, but they're certainly not the way
they're not. Yeah, they're not taking over the country or anything.
No. In fact, the extreme opposite, the exact... If you go swing just as far the other direction, the opposite direction, you're getting to the people who are claiming the autonomous zones in cities. So they, in fact, are hurting people. It's like they want to blame it on white supremacy, but you got to look who are the groups that are taking over cities.
Yeah.
And, throwing their mayors and their representatives out of their own homes. Yeah. That's, there's a pretty clear difference in what's going on there.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't back, people aren't being lynched or persecuted in their streets for their beliefs. This isn't back when that used to happen, although a little bit it is now in the riots and stuff, but not certainly nothing like what it was, 100 years ago even.
Yeah. See, when it comes excuse me.
Absolutely, go ahead. And the other thing I want to say is that America, we're not a perfect nation. We have things that we still have to change and learn, just like we did when we started. We did have slavery. It's terrible, but you can't ask people to, the people who had nothing to do with that at the time, try and make reparations of some kind for that. Also, they didn't have anything to do with it. America is not perfect. We're an idea that takes a long time to be formed, and it's going to take work to get there. We're not just going to get there tomorrow or even in this next election. People demand immediate change right now. They're talking about moving mountains. It takes lifetimes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, these, like Black Lives Matter activists and so forth.
Antifa.
Yeah, they act like, the United States invented slavery. That's not true. It's been a part of every culture throughout most of human history.
Yeah.
And blacks enslaved blacks,
And all throughout history, every color, and even though I thought the goal of our humanity was to grow beyond where we see color, even though it's
Yep.
thrown around an awful lot right now. But color people of every color throughout history have been enslaved. So
Right. Yeah.
we're not just talking about one color or one race that's been enslaved for an all of eternity.
Yeah.
There's been different races and different nationalities been enslaved throughout all of human history.
Yeah. In the Bible, talks about Jacob. Now, Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So Jacob's 12 sons became the progenitors of the 12 tribes. Okay, so Jacob had 12 sons, and his one son Joseph was the favorite. So in Genesis it says how his brothers hated him. They wanted to kill him, but instead they threw him into this pit. It was a dry pit, probably a thing that collected rainwater. Then some slave traders came by and they sold their brother as a slave. So here's they were sort of actually probably brown, not white, not black,
Yeah.
Middle Eastern.
Middle Eastern, yeah.
They sold their brother to these guys that sold him to the Egyptians. So here Joseph was a slave, but he trusted in God.
Yeah, I actually know the story that he's talking about, but I'm going to let him tell it.
Yeah, so he trusted in God, and he just said, hey, if this is what God allowed to happen, I don't understand it, but, I'm just going to make the best of it. So he was faithful in his duties, and eventually he ended up becoming the ruler of the land of Egypt. And there was a famine, and Joseph was in charge of distributing the grain. So his brothers that wanted to kill him and sold him as a slave, they came and found that here he was the number 2 ruler in the land of Egypt.
Yeah.
He knew who they were. They didn't recognize him.
Yeah.
And so later he revealed his identity. Now think of this, a former slave, and he said to them, you meant it to me for evil, but God meant it for good.
Yeah.
So even though what they did was evil, like God had a reason for it. And I think of, blacks in America today. It's sad that slavery happened, but the good part is that even though they meant it to them for evil, would they rather live in America? Would they rather still be living in Africa?
Yeah.
Through that bad thing happening to them, they won life's lottery by being born in America.
Their grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren are now free.
Yep, so it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. So, they meant it to them for evil, but God meant it for good.
Yeah.
And if this is such a horribly racist country, why have millions of black Africans emigrated to the U.S. over the past 20 years?
Yeah.
Why do they still want to come here if this is such a horrible place?
Yep. Why do people still want to come here?
Right.
Why are they screaming for democracy in China?
Yeah.
In the streets of China and in other places right now?
Yeah.
If America is so, terribly racist and, is against so many people, doesn't want to allow people to come up, Yeah. People think this equality that people talk about. And I guess they don't realize that everybody is not always going to be equal. You can't have equal outcome of everything. It's just not the way it was. The best you could hope for is equal opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Does everybody have equal opportunity? No, not necessarily. But if you work hard and if you want to do something, there's freedoms in America that allow you to do it. It's all up to you about your own success.
Yeah.
It took me many years to figure out that maybe this podcast was very possibly the way to go, and my stock trading, you know what I mean? It took me many years to get there, to figure out that that's what maybe I should be doing. Yeah. God's plan.
Yeah.
But now that I'm here, I can see that I'm good at it, and I'll continue to do it, and hopefully it will be a future for me. And I'm able to do that because we have a free market, and I can post this online. I can create my own channels. I can upload my own content. I can create a brand.
Yeah.
And it's through hard work that I'll make it successful. And I can do that because of our free market economy.
Right.
If we had anything, yeah, it would be great if everybody was equal. It would be great if we lived in a utopia. Wouldn't it? Wouldn't that just be wonderful if we lived in a utopia? Of course it would be wonderful if we all lived in a utopia. But we live in this world, and there's sin. I know people don't like to call it that, but there's sin, and people are they're corruptible. And in every form of government there's corruption in every form, including our own.
Yeah.
There's corruption. The difference is that in our democratic republic, is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
There's the corruption can only reach so far. It can only reach so far. We have elections. You can get elected out. There's lots of things that you could do to influence. Money buys things, certainly in this country. But there's an election. It's not guaranteed. You don't have a guarantee of keeping this power that you have or that you're trying to acquire. Plus, we have checks and balances in place to prevent one person from becoming all-powerful.
Right.
Ours is the least susceptible to corruption. That's why it works. That's why it's the best form of government.
Yeah.
People want... It would be great. Yes, it would be great. But that's not how it works. In every other form of government, corruption can be worse than it is in ours. In communism, fascism, socialism, they can all be completely corruptible. You think that the rich people are just going to freely give away their money, and you think that there's going to be enough of it to go around for all the poor people. I got news for you, poor people, and I'm one of those poor people. Some of us are not going to make the transition into socialism when we get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that Putin, he's one of the wealthiest people in all the world.
Yeah.
See, in a socialist country, the political leaders of the party, they end up becoming rich. Everybody else is poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because one person still, that you kill all the rich people, but then one person still collects all that wealth then.
Yeah.
Because corruption exists in the world.
Right. You know, that kind of leads back to like when we were talking about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. See, our founding fathers with their biblical worldview, what does the Bible say about people? Well, they're sinful. Like it says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Now, that's the human heart apart from God's grace working in your heart. Okay?
Yeah.
But, you know, it says there's none righteous, no, not one.
No.
And Isaiah says, oh, we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, you know. So people are sinful, you know, and corrupt, you know. I mean, I'm sinful.
Yeah.
No, not like I used to be. Right.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I like to say it this way. I'm not what I ought to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not all that I'm going to be, but thank God I'm not what I was.
Exactly.
The Lord has changed me, but he's still working on me.
Yes, absolutely.
You know?
We're not perfect. He's not going to make any of us perfect because once sin was born into the world, that we're all susceptible to it. We're all corruptible.
Yeah.
That's human nature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At least in this place, in this world, we are susceptible to sin and corruption. You know, that's just how it is.
Yeah. So see, our founding fathers recognized that.
Yes. That's why they built in so many checks and balances for us.
They took specific steps to try to separate the power so that it's not concentrated in one corrupt person.
Yes.
And so there would be, like you were saying, checks and balances. So that's why, you know, they wanted 3 different branches of the federal government. And that's why we have the federal government, but also state
and
local governments. Not only to take care of more local stuff, but to separate that power.
Yes, that was the other thing. Yeah, it wasn't just the 3 branches of government. You got to think they made the 3 branches of government, but then they also said, no, we're not just going to have a federal government. We're going to have state and local governments as well. Yeah. And yes, that's very important. A lot of places don't have that.
Yeah, I'll say.
So, that was, and how they foresaw. I mean, people say the founding fathers couldn't foresee some of the things, and you're absolutely right. There are some things that they couldn't possibly foresee. But at the same time, based on their beliefs and what they recognized about humanity, they gave us something that couldn't be fully corruptible. It's not, you can't take over. You know, there's not a 100% corruptible way unless you start changing the Constitution, changing the courts,
Right.
and then it does become more susceptible.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, they did put a mechanism in, like if times change and it needs to be adjusted, it's called the amendment.
Yep.
Have you ever heard of amendments?
Yep.
Like if you want to really change something,
Yep.
what a novel idea.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
being
You better-
sarcastic.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
But, you know, instead of trying to get the Supreme Court to have some activist judges to change things they can't get through with legislation, it really needs to be done. Why not propose an amendment?
Yeah.
But see, it's like they're running it, trying to
Also,
do an end run around the Constitution.
exactly. And also, amendments are not susceptible to executive order. So if you could get the legislator to pass an amendment, that's
Yeah.
it. That, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The president actually has, if you actually look at our government, the president actually has less power than the congressional branch. The congressional branch is actually the more powerful ones. They're the ones that pass the laws and make the laws and write the laws.
Yeah. Yeah.
The president just can say yes or no, and then they can even override what the president wants.
Yeah.
So it's
if they get enough votes,
yeah. There are all kinds of safeguards built in. So to claim that President Trump is doing things unconstitutional or anything is just completely not true.
Yeah.
He's being more constitutional than any president we've had in my opinion, in at least the last 4 or 5 presidents. He's more constitutional, obeying the Constitution more than the last 4 or 5.
Yeah.
All the way back to before even the first Bush.
Yeah. Yeah, I marvel at God's wisdom. Like, I didn't really vote for President Trump in the primary election, but, you know, God knew that we needed somebody that's a real fighter. And
Yeah, and you know, and at
yeah.
the time, I'll even say that in the election, I didn't vote for President Trump. I did vote for Hillary Clinton, but I voted Republican down the rest of the ticket. That was how I interpreted a balanced ticket.
Oh,
I wanted, you know, I didn't want to vote for. If I voted for Donald Trump, then I was going to vote Democratic ticket. So that was what I decided. I said, okay, not one side is getting all my votes, because at the time I wasn't happy with what either side was doing at the time.
Yeah.
So I did. I voted. I was like, well, you know what? It's going to be better for senators and congressmen to be in the White House than having a president, because they control more things. So I voted Republican ticket, but I did vote Hillary at the top. A mistake I won't make on this next one. I certainly will be voting Republican across the board. I don't mind saying that on my podcast. I'm happy to stand by it. But that was my interpretation at the time of a balanced ticket. Vote one party on the executive, and then vote the other party in the House and in the Senate.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, you didn't vote for him in the primary, because at the time I didn't think he was going to be a good president. I thought he talked too much. He said the wrong things. Yeah. And he certainly doesn't. He's not the most presidential president that we've ever had in this country either.
Yeah.
He says and does things that are certainly you don't expect a president to say and do.
Yes.
He does it a little bit more frequently than I would like. I would like him to be more presidential, but I think he does it on purpose. I think he does it. I think it's all part of his strategy, the way he sets it up. I think he does it on purpose, because if you look at the way the other side is reacting right now, I mean, they're trying to change laws, pack the courts, they're trying to do things that are unconstitutional just to defeat President Trump. And even I'm not sure, can't confirm this, but I heard that Speaker Pelosi, if he wins the election, Speaker Pelosi is going to try and impeach him again.
Oh, brother.
So I don't know.
Misuse. That's an abuse of power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if that's true. I can't confirm that. It's just something I heard. I can't even remember the source that I had heard it. So, you know, don't take that to the bank or anything. But even if they did try to, I hope it's not true. But if they do try again, it's. I mean, at this point, it's ridiculous. You wasted all that time at the beginning on it.
Yeah.
And it turned out not to be true. You can quote all the things you want out of the Mueller report, but the Mueller report has to be taken as in full context. Can't nitpick sentences out of it and say, look at what this says. Yeah, but what are the sentences before it and after it?
Yeah.
Something
the Mueller report showed the whole Russian collusion delusion was a big nothing burger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and yes, if you take sentences out of context, of course, you can make all kinds of claims when you take a sentence out of context.
Yeah.
Just like I don't like when people misquote the Bible either. You know what I mean? You can't take something of what you can't take one sentence or just one section of what somebody says. It has to be provided in context. So when people quote lines of scripture and it's completely wrong, it's like, yeah, fine, you're right, that is what it says, but that's not what it means.
Right. Could I illustrate that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, there's one verse that says Judas went and hung himself. And another verse somewhere else says, go thou and do likewise.
Yeah.
And another verse says, that thou doest do quickly.
Yeah.
You string those all together.
Yeah.
But is that what the Bible tells us?
Yeah. No. Yes, it's absolutely the sentence and the scripture before and the sentence and the scripture after. What you gotta provide it in context. You can't just take something out of context. One sentence could be taken, any different ways.
Yeah. I wanted to say something about coronavirus. Now, I'm determined not to get us banned from, the internet or anything.
YouTube, yeah.
Yeah. But, okay, so I'm going to say something that the World Health Organization agrees with because they said it. Okay.
Or at least it did it at some point in time. They could change their mind tomorrow.
And I'm going to also say something that Dr. Fauci said. And did I send you the link to Dr. Fauci, a 45-second? Yeah. Okay. So Dr. Fauci has said that through these kind of pandemics, historically, the primary driver of the pandemic is symptomatic people. In other words, if you have symptoms, you're coughing, you're sneezing, a fever, it's through droplets of symptomatic people that is also that's historically been the primary driver of a respiratory illness.
Yeah.
And so he said, Dr. Fauci, I'm quoting, now there could be a rare instance where maybe it could be transmitted from someone asymptomatically, but that has never been the primary driver of it. It's been symptomatic people. And the World Health Organization on their website says the same thing. In fact, about 3 months ago, a doctor who was a spokesman for the World Health Organization, that's what she said. She said, we've been doing detailed contact tracing studies in numerous countries around the world.
Yeah.
And she said, we are not seeing asymptomatic spreading. We're not seeing it. So she said, it appears to be very rare. Well, after this World Health Organization spokesperson said that, man, there was an uproar like, hey, what's going on? And, how can you say that? And so she felt like pressured to have to walk that back. But the World Health Organization still, on the website, says that exact thing. The primary spreader is, through symptomatic people. So that's about all. Just put two and two together.
Yeah.
Do you really need to? Well, that's all I'll say.
Keep the economy locked down. Oh yeah, I'm definitely an advocate of not keeping things locked down. If people want to wear masks, have at it. That's why we live in a free country.
Yeah, if you want to, great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have no objection.
I also have no objections to private businesses.
Yeah.
Demanding that you wear masks in order to enter their place of business.
Right,
that's
fine. Up to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have no problem with that. Yeah. If there's a company that wants to do that, then fine. But the government should not be telling people to do anything. That's just not their role. Yeah, it's to protect the people, but there comes a time where protecting the people if protecting the people starts infringing on people's rights, then the government, as not who I want in charge, deciding whose rights should be infringed on.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use this opportunity to quote Thomas Jefferson, since we were talking about him earlier. Those who are willing to sacrifice liberty to obtain temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to know that yes, a pandemic is it could have been a dangerous thing. And if you really look at the way it was handled, it was certainly very badly handled in states with Democratic governors and Democratic in cities with Democratic mayors. You just can't argue that point. Sorry, the evidence is there. I live in a state here in Pennsylvania. Governor, our Fuhrer, as I called him a couple episodes ago, our Fuhrer, Tom Wolf, did not do good things either. We had a lot of nursing home deaths in this state, not nearly as many as Michigan or New York, but we did have a fair share of nursing home deaths here.
Yeah,
and that you have to look at who was in charge of the states when they made mistakes and who did what, because one party did make more mistakes than the other party. If you actually look at it, you actually sit down and look at it objectively. Clearly, one of our parties did not do as well as the other side. That's there's just no denying that. Hopefully, we won't get banned from YouTube or anywhere for saying that. They'll probably put a little disclaimer next to it.
Yeah, well, today, Scott Perry, he said that 70% of the COVID-19 deaths in Pennsylvania were in nursing homes.
Yeah,
and he said he said Governor Wolf actually lives in his district, and he's written to Governor Wolf about these things, and Governor Wolf has never responded to him.
No,
he doesn't want to.
Who's the other guy? Is it Saratino? I can't remember his last name. There's another. I'm friends with him on Facebook. I've been seeing him. He's been posting videos and stuff saying that he's also wrote letters to the governor, and he hasn't. He doesn't respond to anybody. So, yeah, I mean, it's good that he can't be voted back in anyway. This is his second term, so he can't.
Right.
But what kind of would have been nice if he could run, because I think it would have been a landslide victory in the opposite way.
Yeah, and what about the idea of letting people be grown adults?
Yeah.
And decide what what risks they want to assume.
Absolutely, it's.
I was doing some research about this, and about 38,000 Americans every year are killed in car crashes. Now that's a lot of people.
It is.
And in fact, today I was driving up a road. And I was kind of going up a hill and kind of around a corner, and the sun was just hitting my eye. I couldn't see very well just for a little bit. This big, huge, I think it was a dump truck, was sort of close to the yellow line. And if I would have been over another 2 feet, I could have been with the Lord right now.
Yeah.
My life over, which would be bad for my family and everything, but good for me. But I don't want to go yet because I have too much to do.
Exactly.
But anyway, see, I could have been killed. You could be killed anytime you get in a car and go somewhere. There's that chance, but we are willing to assume that risk.
Yes.
Because of the benefit we get to it.
Yeah.
What about letting adults decide if they want to go out or not?
Yeah,
or want to wear a mask or not wear a mask.
Business owners deciding whether or not they want to run their business.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've lost a lot of small businesses aren't going to make it back this year, and none of that is President Trump's fault, despite what the moderator of the debate and many news anchors will actually say to you, just because they think if they repeat it enough that people will believe it. All you have to do is look at the evidence, and that is clearly see that it is not true. The economy before the pandemic was booming; it was strong. I invest money, so I'm aware of it. I track it every day. The market was going way up. We had a very strong economy. Things were happening, and it was going very well. Now, you can say that, it's for the rich people. Yeah, well, the rich people do have more money to invest, which allows them to make more money. But you know what? I don't have a lot of money, and I'm an investor now.
Yeah.
So... with the technology today, you can take control. You know what I mean? You don't have to take control of your own money, invest your own money. Yeah. You don't have to have hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars in order to do it. You could start with just a little bit. And that's what our free market economy allows, is for people to decide for themselves what they want to do. You want to start a business, go start it. You want to work for somebody else, go work for somebody else.
Yeah.
That's part of our freedom of this country, is the being able to choose what you want to do.
Right.
Because everything has risk. Everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's completely risk-free.
Yeah.
Even doctors are at risk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, some people die from medical accidents.
It's...
Given a wrong medication.
Yeah, there's risk everywhere. It's all around us.
I stopped at Wendy's to get an unsweetened iced tea on the way here. How do I know that the guy working there, isn't evil and didn't poison it?
Yeah.
And I could be dead.
Yeah. Exactly. You're not
Very,
wrong.
very remote
Yeah,
possibility.
but it is still there.
But,
Yeah.
you know, we're willing to take. How do I know someone sick didn't cough in it?
Exactly.
But we take that risk. You
Yep.
know? And
And I think sometimes we take those small risks for granted, and then when we need to protect ourselves, so we'll give away a little bit, you know, when something bad happens, something affects the everyday things, you know, being able to go to the fast food restaurant or whatever, the people panic.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, some of the government didn't help with trying to alleviate the panic.
Yeah.
In fact, let's talk about that for just a second, because President Trump's being quoted now as saying that he's been downplaying the virus, and then people are taking that again out of context. What was the sentence before that, and what was the sentence after that? Well, he's downplaying it because he's the president of the United States, and when you're the president of the United States, markets rise and fall with the words that come out of your mouth.
That's true.
The people can panic if you say things, if you just come out and say, I mean, it's like they wanted him to come right out on the, you know, on that podium and say, okay, everybody needs to panic. This virus is going to kill everybody, and everybody has to stay inside, and if you're not staying inside and you're not panicked, then you will die. That's what they wanted him to come out and say. Yeah. And that's just ridiculous.
It is.
That's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous.
Totally wrong.
When you're the president of the United States, it's you have different responsibilities than anybody else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to choose what you say, and something like that, I could fully understand why he says he downplayed it, because he was downplaying it because he didn't want to create a panic.
Yeah.
He didn't want the market to drop thousands and thousands of dollars and people to lose millions of dollars. People have pensions in the market, so you can't just think it's not about the rich people, the rich investors losing money in the market. It's about the everyday workers losing their pensions too.
Exactly.
There's a lot involved in the market. It's not just the rich people making money in the stocks. There's a lot of different things involved with the market. The price, the value of the dollar, the price of gold, all of that. Other countries' currencies are tied into our stock market. It could affect the globe, not just here in America. So when you're talking about when the president speaks, he affects global markets, and he can't just go out and say, "All right, everybody, panic."
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I always thought of it like just it makes sense not to get people to panic, but I didn't think about the economic implications of what he says too. But yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, and he even took a big risk, even allowing the states to shut themselves down, and shutting things down. Now that hurt a lot of what the market was doing. The market was going strong before that, and it did drop down a lot after that. A lot of people needed to protect their money. Yeah. Especially with a lot of businesses closing and stuff. But he still made the call and to allow states to shut down, and now, of course, all the blame is on him. The economy failed under him, even though nobody wants to look at how strong it was before the pandemic and before governors started closing states.
Blaming him for that's ridiculous.
I know.
You know what I don't understand? Okay, through the shutdown. All right, Walmart could be open.
Yes,
the big grocery stores could be open. But why couldn't little mom and pop shops be open? Why?
They're immune.
Yeah. The virus knows where to attack and not to attack.
Yep, exactly. Yes, it will attack. It will not attack you in Walmart, but it will attack you in Ray's Bakery down the street.
Yeah.
It will not attack you in if you're out there burning down the streets, but it will affect you if you go to an outdoor Trump rally.
Yeah.
So,
but if you protest, especially a violent protest,
if you're violently protesting, you are completely immune.
Right. You won't get.
But
the
if
virus.
you are peacefully protesting on the steps of your legislator with guns in your hand, peacefully, not even being loud, you are completely susceptible to the virus. I mean, this is a virus that I've never seen before. I mean, to be able to just pick and choose
well, I know
events.
It's smart.
Yeah, it's the smartest virus we've ever seen. And then, of course, now President Trump also was infected with the virus, and, people went crazy. And I would just like to say that anybody who is out there wishing for the president to die from the virus you are part of the problem. Because I guarantee you nobody on my side or what I believe in is out there saying, yo, if Nancy Pelosi gets it, we hope she dies. There's nobody on our side saying that the people who are getting it should die. That's not happening. That's only happening in one direction.
Right.
Oh, sorry about the ding, everybody, if you heard it.
Okay.
Someone's trying to message me on Facebook right now. But, nobody on our side, and when I say our side, I mean the Republican side, the conservative side, the right side, and I don't mean that right or wrong. I mean the right side as opposed to the left side. Nobody on our side saying we're glad that people are dying, or we're glad that this person has it or that person has it. Nobody's out there saying that.
Yeah.
And I know it's only a couple people on the other side, and they shouldn't even be associated with that side. They're obviously the extremists, but people out there saying that President Trump should die because he got it now and stuff. That's part of the problem.
That's sad.
That's not what we need right now. No, that's not going to help anybody. You know what I mean?
Now I am not, and listen carefully, I am not happy that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died.
No,
I am glad that her seat has been vacated.
Yeah.
But I am not glad that she's died.
Yes, we can be. Yes, we can be glad that now we get to that President Trump gets to appoint another justice.
Yeah, and I wouldn't wish Joe Biden to die from the coronavirus or Kamala Harris.
Or even Kamala Harris, yes. Right, as much as I don't like her. I'm not really a Kamala Harris fan, but...
Yeah, and as much as we would, disagree with their political views, still, we want everyone to do well and to be healthy. And,
yes, we don't want anybody to die, certainly from the coronavirus or for any reason.
Most importantly, hopefully they get right with the Lord and, get saved before they die. But,
yes, but we're not against when people oppose us. That's what this country was founded upon.
Right.
It was founded upon disagreement and debate.
Yeah, that's another thing that irks me. Like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, they're supposed to be public forums.
Yep.
So they have special tax treatment and protection from legal liability.
Yep.
Because they're supposed to be an open forum.
A public
but
forum,
yet they're doing censorship. They're not allowed to censor.
No. If they become a media company, like a newspaper is or something, then they're under different tax law. Right. You're paying different kinds of taxes than if you're a public forum.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't know about that. That's what's going on right now with Facebook and Twitter. And it's not that people have a problem that they are censoring. It's that they're trying to claim that they're a public forum and censor. You can't do that. If you want to censor people, fine, absolutely fine. It's your company. You can do what you want.
Right.
But you're no longer a public forum. You're a private company.
Yep. And then they're subject to legal liability if they someone slandered.
Yes. That's where it is.
Lied about.
It's the liability. Their liability increases if they become a public company and they're not a public forum. Then they can be sued for what people on their platform say.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an important distinction there when we're talking about the social media. They're claiming tax privileges as a public forum, but by censoring people, anybody, I don't care what they say. Okay, you can, even if they were saying, me, if they, said something about me that was completely untrue, I'm a Muslim, which is completely untrue. I'm a Christian. but in a public forum, anybody can go out there and say that. That's called freedom of speech. Yeah. If you're a private company and you're censoring what people are saying, you're no longer a public forum. You're a private company, and you are subject to what is said under your private company.
Yeah.
So it makes them much more liable, which is why they want to stay a public forum, but they also want to censor people, and you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that. And that's what people who have a problem with that are saying. Listen, we don't have a problem with either one, but pick one. You can't have it both ways. You can't be a public forum and censor people. If you're going to censor people, you're a private company and you're subject to different tax law than if you're a public forum. Sorry.
Yeah.
So make up your mind. You can't have it both ways. You don't get to have your cake and eat it too. Pick one or the other. You're either a public forum or a private company.
Yeah. One thing I love about President Trump is that I love how he calls out the media, like he calls them fake news.
Yes.
Because so oftentimes they lie.
They do.
And it
People
used
don't
to be
realize it.
It used to be journalists would try to be objective, at least aim for that. nowadays, the mainstream media, they don't even hide their bias.
No, or even back in the day, even when a journalist would have a bias,
Yeah.
they would give us the facts of the case, and then they would
Yeah.
give us their opinion on it, or
Yeah.
then give us their bias.
Right.
But they don't do
Yeah.
that anymore. It's not about facts anymore. It's just about ratings and what can we say to make people agree with us today.
Yeah. 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 So now there's something else I wanted to say about the Declaration of Independence.
All right, sure. Let's bounce back to that.
Okay, so it says that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. So among them, now there are more than these, but
Yes.
these are the three that they mentioned that are the big ones.
Yes.
The right to life, liberty, that's freedom, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yep.
Now we know from they had different ways that they wrote this, and so in one place in the Constitution it says no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property
Yep.
without due process of law.
Yep.
So the pursuit of happiness included property, but let's talk about the right to life. Well, see, an unborn baby is a human. It's human, and it's a living thing.
Yes.
And that life should be protected as well.
That's right.
So this isn't to make anybody feel guilty if they've had an abortion, but I mean, I'm not without sin, so I'm not.
Yeah, it's not about guilt.
Stone.
It's not about making you feel guilty or.
But neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. I mean, just don't. It's still wrong. Don't say it's not wrong.
Yeah.
But that our life can't be taken away without due process of law. Now, if we go and murder somebody and we get the death penalty, well, but
that's punishment. Yes,
right.
There's
and
punishment
justice.
for breaking laws. Yes.
Yep, and
exactly.
that's administration of justice. Yep.
Yeah.
So we have the right to life, liberty, that's freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, the pursuit of happiness deals with not only being able to own private property, but it's kind of like what you were saying earlier, that you get to choose your own destiny and do what you want to do or what you feel God wants you to do.
Yep.
So, there's some countries in the world where if your father was a bricklayer, you became a bricklayer. If your father was a butcher, you became a butcher. Or in communist countries, from what I understand, they decide what you're going to do, what your job will be.
Yeah.
So you train for that. Well, in America, you can determine, well, if you just want to be a bum and not do anything, and just coast along, you can. Or if you want to try to work hard and make something of yourself, you can. You want to choose to be a doctor or a baker or a printer or a landscaper or
have a family, not have a family,
right? A YouTuber, whatever.
Yep.
You're free. There are all kinds of opportunities. Yeah, go for it. So So the government is to protect those God-given rights.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. Here's the danger in our country. As America detaches from God, there's a greater potential for the erosion of our freedom.
Yes.
Because, the philosophy was God created us. He gave us these rights. The government is supposed to protect our God-given rights. So if people don't believe in God anymore, well then
where do our rights come from?
Yeah.
From the people who are deciding.
Yeah.
And now we're back to people deciding what our rights are and what our rights aren't. And people don't think that people claim that they want equal rights, which we do have equal rights here in this country. I'm just as free as anybody else. Yeah. Just the way it is. Yeah. Some things are legal that maybe shouldn't be, like abortion, like what you were saying, and maybe some things are illegal that should be, such as marijuana and maybe some other types of drugs that maybe should be legal that are illegal, because it's not the government's place to be telling people what to do. We live in a free country, then people should be able to be free. Even if they want to make bad decisions, then they're free to make bad decisions, as long as their bad decisions don't infringe on someone else's rights or life or liberty. Then Then we shouldn't be able to tell anybody how to live, as long as you're not hurting or taking from someone else then who is anybody to tell anybody else how to live or what to do? And that's what this country was founded upon. Even the bad decisions. If you're free to make your bad decisions if you want.
Like tobacco is legal.
Yes,
Good, not good for you.
Absolutely, tobacco kills people every year. You know what I mean? You know, and
what about
alcohol is also illegal.
Candy and cupcakes.
Yep, candy, processed
food. Yeah, white bread.
Yep, McDonald's. And that's what we're talking about, though, is that when you start letting people decide who gets what rights, that's what you're going to start facing. Even if it's not right away, you'll eventually get there.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the person. You can even say, like, when George Washington was elected, he could have easily, from what I understand of the time, he could have probably served as president, because there were no term limits back then. He could have served as president for the rest of his life. From what I understand, he could have just continued to run, and he served 4 terms. But after his 4th term, he said, "No, we're getting away from the monarchy." He's like, "This." He's like, "I can't." He's like, "I shouldn't run again because this is what we're breaking away from. Is the monarchy? So I shouldn't be elected again. It's someone else's turn to lead now."
Yeah, and didn't he say, "I'm going to go back to my farm"?
Yes, yeah. Went back to his farm. He wanted to relax. His work was done, and that's what it's not about the person. It's not about the person who you think is a good leader. It's about the 50 that are coming after him.
Yeah,
that's why our Constitution is built the way it is. George Washington was a great president and very popular, and could have, like I just said, served for the rest of his life. But in an effort to break away from the role of a monarchy, he said, "No, I'm not going to just serve and serve, because we're breaking away from it, and this is how."
Yeah, there was something you alluded to earlier about. You said that we live in a democratic republic.
Yeah.
And that's really important. A lot of times you'll hear. People in the mainstream media, and especially Democrats, they'll say, "Our democracy," and our democracy.
Yep.
Well, see, okay, what a lot of people don't understand is that we don't have a democracy.
No, we don't.
We have a republic.
Yes.
The republic is based on law, and the law has certain limitations to the government. Now, there are democratic principles that are a part of it. So, we have
we vote for our leaders. That's the democratic part of the process, is that we vote for our leaders. The republic process is that our leaders make the decisions, not us.
Right. So I guess you could say we have a democratic republic, but,
that's what I like to call it.
But it's a republic. So see, democracy is not, like, pure democracy is not a good thing.
No.
Because the majority rules and the majority wins. Well, then suppose the majority would say, I think we should outlaw all Christianity.
Yeah.
Well, then no freedom of religion. Or I think we should kill or imprison all atheists.
Yeah.
Well, then all the atheists would be killed. Or, that you could pick any group, any small subgroup or minority that the majority doesn't like or want, and they could eliminate them.
Yeah.
So you don't want a pure democracy.
No, you don't. We were built, and that's the other thing. Another thing that the founders built on is protecting the opinion and the rights of the minority.
Yeah.
And even making sure that they're heard.
Yeah. So the American way and the constitutional way and the Christian way is give people, God made us, He gave us certain rights, the government should protect our rights, and just live the way you feel God has gifted you, and take advantage of the life that God has given you and the opportunities, and just let people alone and let them answer to God. But see, the socialists and communists of our day, and the Democratic Party is, we know better how to run your life.
Yep. So
we want more government control and power, so we can tell you what to do and make a better world according to the way that we think.
Yeah,
and that's ridiculous.
Yep, it absolutely is. Yep.
Stay out of my life, government.
Yep. They do want to get in, and that's what a lot of people, they think. Some of the people who are voting Democratic, you would imagine, are for that. The government should be telling society how to live. But that's not what we're founded upon. We're founded upon, liberty and freedom. And who are they to tell us anything? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who is anybody to tell anybody else anything? So that's what, part of the fundamentals of what we were founded upon is the freedom and the minority opinion be heard.
Yeah.
And not mob rules, which is what true form of democracy is whatever the majority wants, then that's it.
Yeah.
And then the minority, whatever the opinion is eliminated.
Yeah, the political left in our day and age do not really believe in free speech.
Yeah.
I mean, freedom of speech is an American value from the very beginning. And that's in the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
But a lot of the political left in our day do not believe in free speech.
No.
They believe if you say something that they don't like, you should be silenced. And now there's what some people have called the cancel culture.
Yep.
Someone says something you don't like,
Just
you call up, cancel them, and you call up their boss, try to get them fired.
Yep.
And what kind of ridiculous nonsense is that? That's
Yep.
evil, and it's un-American.
Yep, freedom of speech is freedom of
Yep.
speech. I don't believe that there is hate speech. There is speech that's, mean or rude, or it can have, hateful feeling behind it.
Yeah.
You can say something that is hateful, but hate speech is there's just freedom of speech. Speech is speech. You can't have hate speech. You start legislating speech and what people can say, and then again, you go back to who's making that decision, and then what happens when they start deciding that this is illegal,
Yeah.
You can't say balloon on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And people, a lot of people will laugh at that too, but it's, once you start down that slope, it doesn't take long to get to something like that.
Yeah.
You elect a crazy person into office with your mob rules mentality, your brand new democracy that you just installed, and then this madman decides that not only can you not have balloons on Wednesday, you can't even say the word balloon on Wednesday, and that's all it takes. People got to think about that. It's not they always think about the best, socialism. If everybody would just do this, of course that would be great. But you got to. It's not about that. It's not thinking about what the majority would do. You got to think about the person who isn't thinking like everybody else. You know what I mean? In addition to protecting the minority opinion, because sometimes the minority opinion is the better option to go with, but you also got to protect yourself against those crazies who are out there. So it's a fine line with what we have, but it works. What we have works. It's worked for what? 200 years now.
Over 200 years.
Yeah, more than 200 years now. Yeah. And, don't start making changes to the fundamentals of this. That's when you start eroding it. Like you said, without God, we start eroding our own laws.
Yeah.
Because we make them now, not God.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I guess everything's in the Lord's hands.
Yeah.
And I'm just praying that, the Republicans can prevail in this upcoming election. But that's that's our political
Yes,
view.
that's what I also believe in.
If somebody wants the Democrats, they're an American.
You're as well within your rights to believe that.
Yeah, they can believe that.
And you can get on YouTube and state it out loud to everybody, too, just like we just did.
Yeah.
That's your freedom. You're free to do so.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap it up. If you're Gavin... Pastor Gavin also has his own YouTube channel, which I will provide you links on. You can also, you okay with me giving him your Facebook page? You can go and see him on Facebook page, facebook.com/Moores Mountain Church. I'll have the YouTube address in the description. And of course, go to facebook.com/JDEDESIGNz. You can also go to facebook.com/The Boiling Point Podcast, youtube.com/The Boiling Point Podcast. And of course, if you want to buy some clothing, you go to bonfire.com/JDEDESIGNz apparel and buy some shirts. I'd like to thank Gavin Sr. for being on the show. We'll have him back again very soon as his schedule will permit. And you should check out his channel. He gives great sermons online. And if you are in the Pennsylvania area, just GPS Moores Mountain Church, Wednesday Wednesday night services?
Yeah, and Sunday at 10:30.
And Sunday at 10:30.
Yeah, Sunday night also.
And Sunday
6:30.
and Sunday night also at 6:30. So if you
we're
wanna...
Northern York County, Fairview Township.
Okay.
Yeah. That's 2 miles south of Lisburn, 3 miles west of Lewisberry.
All right. And,
3 miles north of Ski Round Top, as the crow flies.
Okay. So if you want to also go see him in person, that's where you can see him at, and we will have him on again real soon. Gavin, thanks for being on, and I can't wait to have you on again. This is a great show. It's going to be very popular. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time.